Today we're coming to you from Cove in County Cork, and a fresh and even blustery day
right.
it is. Now, Cove is a town built on a hill which sweeps down to the sea, and today it's dominated by one of the biggest luxury liners in the world, and later we will be going on board. Now, Cove, you could say, is a town which has had several names down through the centuries. It started out as Cove, C-O-V, then after a visit by Queen Victoria, it became Queenstown. Then came independence and the local council changed its name again back to Cove, but this time in the Irish style, spelled C-O-V-H.
Makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind. Oh, summer breeze makes me feel fine.
Behind me here are the remains of the pier along which the passengers would have walked to board the tenders which took them out to the Titanic. This town is steeped in the history of that ship. Cove was the last port of call for the RMS Titanic after she had embarked on her ill-fated maiden voyage on the 11th of April 1912. She called in here to pick up mail and also 123 passengers who were emigrating to the United States.
It was some departure as the Balmoral left Southampton following Titanic's route, heading for the wreck site 2,000 miles away. Amid all the razzmatazz and fancy dress, one British woman made a quiet and dignified entrance. 76-year-old Sally Odell, who has a remarkable link to the whole Titanic story. A century ago, her relatives were on board for the first stage of the journey, the section between Southampton and Queenstown in Ireland. Because they got off there, their photographs survived.
Kate had a camera on board.
In her top-deck cabin, Sally showed me the pictures. The little boy is Jack Odell, a cousin, 11 years old when he was taken on Titanic.
That's his camera case.
Yeah.
Slung over his shoulder.
Today, the Balmoral will stop in County Cork, just as Titanic did, at Queenstown, or Cove as it's now known, where the Odells disembarked. As they got off, they took this photograph, looking up at the ship. This is my favourite, I think, of all of them, because it just gives
Looks
a
huge,
great
doesn't
idea
it?
of that size of that ship, doesn't it?
It does, it looks enormous. But look how few lifeboats there are.
As the ship sailed away from Ireland, Sally's ancestors took one last picture. Titanic was never photographed again.
Well, they didn't know, did they? Nobody on land knew. Off to the unknown.
With a feeling akin to suppressed excitement, I watched the scene. It was my first experience of actual travel on an ocean liner, and for a beginning, I couldn't have struck a bigger boat.
One April morning in Dublin in 1912, Jesuit novitiate Frank Brown received a surprise gift in the post: a 2-day cruise on the world's largest liner.
Frank's parents died when he was young, and it was his wealthy Uncle Robert, the Bishop of Cloyne, that brought him up. Uncle Robert had a great interest in photography, and over the years gave Frank presents of different cameras, better ones each time.
The photographs that Frank took on his voyage from Southampton to Cove, then called Queenstown, provide a unique visual record of Titanic's maiden voyage.
It was not until having ascended 3 flights of stairs that we could form any adequate idea of the size of this, the largest ship in the world. Left and right stretched a wall of steel. It towered high above the roof of the station that we'd just left. We were about 40 feet above the quay level, and yet scarce halfway up the side of the ship. Below us, the people looked tiny.
With a letter of introduction and a little Irish charm, Frank made friends with the head purser, Hugh McElroy, seen here next to Captain Smith.
Somebody introduced him to Mr. McElroy, and he obviously gave him the run of the ship because Frank, during his 24 hours on board, was able to visit the stem and stern and upstairs and downstairs.
Frank Brown became a distinguished photographer, but his thoughtful selection of subjects is evident even this early in his career. From children playing on deck to the first-class gym, he captured a revealing record of daily life on board.
His first-class ticket was for 37A, and when he was handed the plan of the liner to find 37A, he opened up this big large plan and could find no 37A or 37B for that matter. So even though the heading on the plan said that it is plan of Titanic, Frank crossed that out and said this is a plan of the Olympic that differed in several respects. For example, it doesn't show my cabin. So he had to draw it in, and he shows that my suite was here: bedroom, bathroom, and sitting room. When he went down to his meals in the first-class dining room, he found himself sitting beside an American couple, very well-to-do, and obviously loaded, so much so that they said, "Hey, listen, we'll pay your fare the rest of the way to New York if you stay on with us." They were obviously very taken by him.
Frank Brown accompanied his dining companions to the Marconi room, where they sent a telegram to his Jesuit superior in Dublin, known as Provincial, requesting permission to stay on board. The picture seen here is the only one ever taken of the Marconi room on Titanic. When they arrived in Cove, Ireland, Titanic's final stop and embarkation point, the written reply Frank Brown received was abrupt.
He loved showing people the 5-word telegram: "Get off that ship, Provincial."
Frank's photographs of the mail and tenders at Cove were the last in his Titanic collection.
As I passed down the gangway, I met Mr. McElroy. "Goodbye," I said. "I'll give you copies of my photos when you come again. Pleasant voyage."
Father Brown's Titanic photographs provide the only full record of that ship's first and final journey. After the sinking, they were to appear in many newspapers. Father Frank Brown pursued his passion for photography until his death in 1960.
In 1985, I was living in a Jesuit house in Donnybrook on Eglinton Road, where in the basement they kept the Jesuit archives. And I often wondered what was in a big trunk. And when I opened that, it was one of the most amazing moments of my life, because the thing was full of packs and packs and packs of Father Brown's photographs.
The London Sunday Times dubbed the find the photographic equivalent to the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
And since that, we've published his collection in 22 installments. The French magazines said that he was the Irish equivalent of Cartier-Bresson, the world's best photographer ever. Yet this would never have happened if he hadn't got off that ship. He said it was the only time that holy obedience ever saved a man's life.